Traveling the world really has improved my life and increased my appreciation of and understanding of other people, and also made it very evident to me that fewer people travel and know about other people than I realized. There were a lot of things on my last trip to Europe that surprised me, but one of the ones that surprised me most was how little people seem to know about their own history. In the palace in Krakow, there's a painting called The Battle of Vienna by Bitwa pod Wiednym. I'm probably mispronouncing that because I don't know any Polish except for curse words. That I found fascinating. I took a photo of it because in Poland they let you photograph whatever the hell you want, as opposed to Spain where they don't let you photograph anything. Um, and then when I got to Vienna, somebody that I knew from when I lived in Vienna took me up on the top of Kopfenberg, and he took me up there just to get the view of the city because I had not had a chance to go up there when I lived there. And when I was walking back to where he had parked, I noticed this plaque on the side of a church commemorating that it had been rebuilt after the slaughter at Kopfenberg. So I asked him, "So what's up with this? What's this slaughter at Kopfenberg?" And he said, "Oh, that's where we got together for a last stand against the Ottomans." Uh, and Kopfenberg is just to the west of Vienna, up against the Danube River. So they're going to make their last and final stand there and die. And then he said to me, and then this army appeared from the north and rescued us, and we won the battle. He did not know who that army was, and I knew who it was because I had just been in Poland like 3 days before that, and I had seen this painting and knew, oh yeah, the Poles sent their army down to help defeat the Turks because there was a great risk that the Turks would conquer Europe and spread Islam throughout Europe. And so the Poles sent their army down to help make sure that the Austro-Hungarian Empire didn't fall. I didn't really know when I lived in Vienna that there'd been this slaughter there. I knew that the city had been besieged and there were battles there. It's sort of a strategic point along the Danube River there. But since I lived on the other side of the river, I really didn't know a whole ton about the historical relevance of any of those locations. And apparently, living there didn't help him know those things either, because I discovered that this man did not know, despite having been raised there and educated there, that the army that came to rescue them was from Poland. Now, I knew the Poles had been important in history. I did not realize until I went to Poland how far the Turks had gotten into Europe. I knew that there had been invasions, and I knew that the Poles had played an integral part, particularly during the Grand Duchy of Poland Lithuania, of keeping the Russians out until later on Austria would carve up Poland with Germany and Russia, and that was the end of that buffer region, which we now are facing problems with today. But they apparently played a much bigger role than I suspected. I also learned, which I had not supposed, in about 800 AD, Poland just appears. And I didn't know where they got their money from until I went to the Wizlica salt mine there. And on the tour, there's a big statue of the king at the time, uh, talking about how the Poles have been mining this mine salt out of this mine for like 1,000 years, and that's where they got their money from, is because everyone wants salt, everyone will buy salt, and there was always more salt to be found, and so more money for the Poles. Uh, Now, of course, they have oil and other natural resources that they can sell, but it made them rich enough to raise armies and fend off an invasion from Turkey that got all the way, not just to Vienna, but I saw a map in the palace in Krakow that showed that the Turks managed to get to the uh, through past Gdansk in Poland and reach the sea on the north. So they basically breached all of Europe and made it to the sea on the north side, just south of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. It surprises a lot of Europeans that I know as much as I do about their geography, about their history, and about their language. And that's because I took advantage of some advice I was given when I was 19 years old to visit art galleries, museums, and places of historical interest. I do that in America too, and it has enriched my understanding of people because at the end of the day, they are distant family members who have a different experience growing up. where they've had their problems with brothers, neighbors, the same way I have problems with some of my brothers and my neighbors. I don't go to war with them over HOA violations, but it's basically the human experience that because we come from different places and different perspectives, that we don't always see eye to eye and there will be conflict. And the more that we learn about how these old hatreds arise and how they were dealt with in the past, the more we understand what's going on now. Because there is a lot of criticism for European nations who are keeping certain people out. And if you learn about the push into Europe by Islam, about the Spaniards driving the Muslims out of Iberia, you start to understand a little bit more about how they arrived at who they are and why they overreacted the way they do. There's a long standing history between most people that we in America don't really understand because our country isn't that old, and that a lot of the people who came here are mixed enough that we have diluted our history down and we no longer identify with simply our Danish roots or our English roots. We are Americans, and we have some concerns about the British, but other than that, we don't really have any personal enemies like these other countries do. Clearly, there's a 1,000-year adversarial relationship between the Muslim Turks and the Christians of Europe that extends far beyond the Crusades. And it's not just about when the Europeans went to the Holy Land, because apparently the people who lived there, once they retook the Holy Land, brought the war to Europe, which is something you don't hear about on the news very often. You don't hear about the invasions of Europe. You just hear about it as if the Christians went and messed up life in the Holy Land. And no matter how you might try to preserve your own, you are touched by all those with whom you come in contact, for better or worse. You finally understand, having been to Poland, why Polish costumes look funny, why they dress differently, their weaponry. It has to do with the cultures and countries that they encountered. They did not encounter the Romans. They encountered the Russians, the Tartars, the Hussards, the Ottomans, and that has influenced the way they live, the way they fight, the way they operate. And that now gives me an understanding of how they are so different from a country that is so only a few hundred miles away. How Austrians and Poles are so different because it has to do with their different interactions. And Austrians don't even know the Poles came to rescue them. That just boggles my mind, that they don't even know that that was the army that came to their rescue. And I do. I feel enriched by this. I don't feel like, it's not to brag. It's now I get it. Now I know where they come from, who they are, a little bit more about where they come from, who they are, what matters to them, and why things matter to them that don't make sense to me. It comes from an understanding of their history, of their culture, of their experience, of their interactions with their neighbors, people I don't interact with on a regular basis because the United States and Turkey don't share a border. And despite the extent of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey has never shared a border with the United States. Russia sort of does, separated by some water. But we have more of an interaction with an experience with them than we do with the Turks. But now I understand a little bit more, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful I have the money and the time to go do this, that I took the time to go walk through the museum, look at the paintings, and that I can retain that information, which gives it greater context and meaning once I get additional information with which to pair it. This is something that I recommend, this is a reason why I recommend that you travel and experience other places beyond the capital cities, to talk to the people, to go see weird things outside of the city center, because you can see the city center from Kaufenberg, but Stephansdom was hard to find. It's so far away. And so a lot of tourists will never go there, will never see that, and they will never make that connection. Because I didn't, and I lived there for a while. I mean, I lived in Floridsdorf, which is on the other side of the river, but it's not that far from the city center, especially with their public transportation. So travel a little bit, learn about the people. Don't just go see the sights and take the photos and eat the foods. That will teach you some things. But it's only when you talk to the people that you will learn who they are, what they know, and what they don't know. And what they don't know can help you become a better person as well. Anyway, go see the world. That's what it's there for. Travel safely and be wise. Watch your backs. Ciao.